Welcome to the Fourth Branch program, the place for common sense. Today is Monday, August 12, 2019. I am MD. Since Jeffrey Epstein suicide, there have been tons of articles written. Conspiracy theories abound, even all the way to the Oval Office. In this program, we will explore what all those conspiracy theories have been throwing out there and try to look at the death of Jeffrey Epstein through the prism of common sense. If you joined us before, thank you. Your participation makes the journey a little bit lighter, a tad more bearable. If you join us for the first time, once again, welcome. The Fourth Branch program is not associated with any political party, and we at the Fourth Branch do not have any political agenda or aspiration. Our ultimate objective is to perfect union, and in order to do so, we ought to remove the biggest obstacle of all, which is ignorance. JFK said that the ignorance of one voter in a democracy impairs the security of us all. Thus, the importance of eradicating ignorance from our society. Today, we decided to talk about something that we usually would not have. And the reason is because the purpose of this program is not to talk about, a topic like this. We try to stay within the boundaries of talking about topics that can help advance the affairs of the country, topics that impact a large sector of the population, topics socio-political, but nevertheless that would have an impact in our society, such as last week, if you've been watching, you would notice that we spent a great deal of time talking about mass shooting. But more specifically about the causes behind the mass shooting. But talking about Jeffrey Epstein, his death, is not something that, not that of course his family would be grieving. It's, people committing suicide is not something to laugh about, is not something to discard outright, because we don't know at this point, because of all the conspiracy theories that have been thrown into this conversation, that, well, it seems that a number of people believe that Jeffrey Epstein did not commit suicide, but rather was murdered. And this is what we are going to try. And the reason that we decided to do that is because the President of the United States, as it is always in almost every situation, insert himself into this matter and start helping spread the conspiracy theories. Now, I did take the time since over the weekend to get to as many venues as possible, Democrat, Republican, all the publication, whether it's TV, radio, newspapers, so to speak, to find out what was being said. As I mentioned earlier, there are no, it's mind-boggling the number of articles that are already written about the death of Jeffrey Epstein. It's almost as if, in fact, I wonder, in all fairness, if what other situations similar that generated so much ink. Now, the President of the United States joined the group of individuals, exclusively Republicans, who are behind the theory that Jeffrey Epstein was deaf, they put it on the Clinton. In fact, they went as far back as during the Clinton administration and evoke Vance Foster, who also committed suicide during that time, and it was almost exclusively blamed on the Clinton. And now, again, Jeffrey Epstein is once again placed on the Clinton. Now, that's a Republican side. On the Democrat side, of course, there is no lack of, well, I cannot say it's the same as the Republican side, because on the internet, when I browse for Epstein death, the conspiracy theories are, as far as that gentleman is concerned, most of what was written in terms of conspiracy theory about his death came from the Republican side. Now, Democrats have their own too. They do believe that, well, the Trump has also reason to want Jeffrey Epstein dead because of his close proximity with Jeffrey Epstein during the time at some point in the past. Now, the association of one individual with another who end up being a bad element of society doesn't necessarily make those individuals guilty of anything. Of course, it raises concern, it raises suspicion. That's acceptable, because if you used to be friends, I can give you a good example. When Timothy McVeigh was found to be the individual behind bombing, I think that was during the 80s, if I'm not mistaken, 1980s, or was it around 2000? I think the Attorney General was Janet Napolitano, if I'm not mistaken at that time. But in any event, it's that's not really the important part of the story. Investigation took the investigators all the way back to Timothy McVeigh high school, people that he used to associate with, and there was a lady in particular that they turned her life upside down. Now, granted, between the time that that individual was friendly to Timothy McVeigh and at the time that Timothy McVeigh became a criminal, there was no connection between those two. It's just a way of showing you that yes, sometimes you can associate with someone, but if you're no longer in the person's circle and that individual end up being a bad element of society, that does not make you anywhere associated with whatever that individual is accused of. So as such, what became almost mind-boggling to me is looking at all those articles, all those publications online. I saw a common thread. If it is a Republican publication, everything that they talk about in terms of conspiracy theory in regard to Jeffrey Epstein, you would see the name of the Clinton mentioned. Nowhere would you ever see the name of Donald Trump. And that's a little bit disingenuous because of the fact that there are plenty of pictures of Donald Trump with Jeffrey Epstein, but I could not find any picture of the Clinton with Jeffrey Epstein. Now that doesn't mean it doesn't exist, and that doesn't mean they didn't take picture. But what I'm trying to say is that when you go on and read any of those Republican articles, you would not find any mention of Donald Trump with Jeffrey Epstein. It's almost as if it was a concerted effort to say that yes, the Clinton was responsible. Now here's the background story. Jeffrey Epstein, being a wealthy individual, as you should know by now, people in politics like to befriend people with money. And the reason is because re-election time, they need those wealthy individuals to chip in. Now you can almost say that this relation is not really necessarily a friendship, but rather simply a relation that is a business relation. Because the reason all those politicians associate themselves with those wealthy individuals is because they know that when they need money for the election campaign and re-election campaign, they're not going to get a lot of money from constituents, so they get it from those individuals. So yes, Bill Clinton, just like as you might have already known, that a lot of wealthy individuals, according to the release document by the court over the weekend, that a lot of wealthy individuals, people with stature, are found to have some sort of association with Jeffrey Epstein. Again, as I mentioned, those conspiracy theories just trying to say that the Clinton were responsible for Jeffrey Epstein murder because they're afraid of what may come out. That's their conspiracy theories. How possible is that? Now, as I just pointed out, you would not find anywhere written in any of those articles, because I read the Fox article, Fox website, I read the Hill, nowhere is it found. And those publication, you would have said that had they not been mostly propaganda machine, you would have said those are media venues that would be considered more or less reliable in terms of providing information about news. And if you read any of the articles posted in those media, in those venues, you will not find anywhere the name of Donald Trump mentioned. I say this is disingenuous because if you are a news organization, the job is to pass the information properly, but not to fan the conspiracy theory, because by omitting the name of Donald Trump, what they actually doing is fanning the flame of the conspiracy theory, because Donald Trump never get mentioned in those articles because they simply mention the association of Bill Clinton with Jeffrey Epstein, as if it stopped there. Now, before we take a look at whether Jeffrey Epstein was murdered, and if so, by whom, let's take a look at the other side of the coin, because as I mentioned, the conspiracy theories, along with media that publication that support Donald Trump, completely let the Republican constituent in the dark. And it's not by accident, it's on purpose, because they too have access to those information. You do a small, you don't have to have access to sophisticated database in order for you to find pictures of Donald Trump with Jeffrey Epstein. You don't have to. And we're going to show you that in just a moment, because it is important when we're talking about those kind of things, in order for the audience to get a sense as to what we're talking about. And if you're not really dealing with conspiracy theories, you're more or less interested in the facts, in the truth, then it is a good place to start to understand that, yes, Jeffrey Epstein was found at some point to be a criminal, and those people associated with him, were those people anywhere involved? But in order to get that picture, that complete picture, you have to get a complete picture, because if any media try to really remove part of the picture so that you don't see that, is because they're trying to skew the information. And that's where we come in. We try to dispel any myth about that before we look at the actual question, which is, was Jeffrey Epstein murdered? In just a moment. As I mentioned, there are plenty of evidence, picture, of Donald Trump with Jeffrey Epstein. Now, that doesn't mean there is no evidence of the Clinton and Jeffrey Epstein, but I was not able to locate such evidence. So if you have those, I would very much appreciate it you forward some of them to me. Now, here is, for instance, a picture of Donald Trump posing with Jeffrey Epstein. That was, as I mentioned, that doesn't mean anything, because just because you have an encounter with an individual, you have a picture with that individual, doesn't mean you are necessarily involved or were involved in whatever the individual was doing. That's not really the question, and that's not the point we're trying to discuss. Now, here's another picture of Donald Trump along with Melania and Jeffrey Epstein, and if you look at their hands, both of them are holding their women, passing their hands around the women's waist. Donald Trump around Melania. I'm not sure of the name of that woman that Jeffrey Epstein was holding, but nevertheless, as you can see, there are plenty of pictures of Donald Trump with Jeffrey Epstein. Now, we even have a video that was aired not too long ago by MSNBC, and that shows Donald Trump not just in picture, but also at parties with Jeffrey Epstein. Now, we're doing all that in order to address the other aspect of the conversation, that for whatever reason, publication in Fox News, in The Hill, places that usually support Donald Trump, tend not to show any connection between Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein, but they keep talking about connection between Jeffrey Epstein and Bill Clinton, and we want to make sure that this is not lost in the conversation. Now, very quickly, we're going to show you very quickly a video that was, it's a 2-minute video that was aired by MSNBC a couple of months ago, and that clearly show that Donald Trump is not just an acquaintance to Jeffrey Epstein, but they seem to have a much stronger relationship.
Now, some footage from 1992 that our producers found in the NBC archives that shows Donald Trump with Jeffrey Epstein, who is now a sex offender and accused sex trafficker, looking at and talking about women at a party.
Welcome to the Southern White House.
Since becoming president, Donald Trump has branded Mar-a-Lago the Southern White House, a place that entertains foreign leaders, where military strikes are ordered, and whose terrace served as an open-air situation room over dessert.
And we had the most beautiful piece of chocolate cake that you've ever seen.
But in the 90s, Mar-a-Lago was Trump's South Florida party palace, one frequented by Jeffrey Epstein, who is facing charges for sex trafficking. He has pleaded not guilty. The president says his relationship with Epstein was no different than anyone else in their elite circle.
Well, I knew him like everybody in Palm Beach knew him. He was a fixture in Palm Beach. I don't think I've spoken to him for 15 years. I wasn't a fan.
Yet, a tape in the NBC archives of a Mar-a-Lago party shows Trump giving Epstein his personal attention. Donald! 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 The footage, shot in November of 1992, before Trump opened the resort as a club, shows the future president surrounded by cheerleaders for the Buffalo Bills and Miami Dolphins, capturing Trump's fun-loving bachelor lifestyle for an appearance on Faith Daniels' NBC talk show.
We're going to get great ratings in your show.
Trump is surrounded by women as music blares in the background. After a while, Trump goes to greet 3 new guests, among them the financier Jeffrey Epstein.
Come on in. Go inside.
More than a decade before his guilty plea on state prostitution charges. Later in the footage, Trump is seen talking to Epstein and another man as women are dancing in front of them. Trump alternates between dancing and pointing out women to Epstein and the other man and telling Epstein about the cameras. Though exactly what they say is difficult to understand as they discuss the women and their appearances, Trump gestures to one and appears to say to Epstein, "Look at her back there. She's hot." And then Trump says something else into Epstein's ear that makes him double over with laughter. But as the president says now, he never liked Epstein.
I was not a fan of his. That I can tell you. I was not a fan of his.
So we want you now some...
there a possibility that Jeffrey Epstein may have been murdered as the conspiracy theories have been swirling around? At all? Well, let's take a look at it. Now we're going to look at both sides of the conspiracy theories and see which make more sense, but we're not really here to continue the flaming of conspiracy theories, but rather to try to dispel the myth. Now, on the Republican side, it is believed that Bill Clinton has a hand in Epstein murder. That was not a suicide. That's really the argument. Nobody's buying that was a suicide. Now let's look at the possibility of such. How would that happen? How can that happen? Now Bill Clinton no longer a politician. He's a civilian just like any other civilian. Yes, he was the president of the United States, but he's now a civilian. How would that work? How would he have access to Epstein? Who would he pay to do that? Who would cooperate with him? And why would they do that? Would Bill Clinton risk that whoever that individual would be, because remember, nobody can just walk into a jail and commit murder and walk out without being seen on camera. Which means if anybody were to come from outside to try to kill Epstein, then it would become pretty obvious then there was an individual who was tasked to do that. Now we can rule that out because that would be too obvious, right? Well, for anyone. So it would have to be someone inside, someone who already working there that would have done the job. Now we're talking about the argument, the conspiracy theory aspect that it's Bill Clinton. Now that individual working from inside. Now, whether there is camera or not on that side where Jeffrey Epstein was found dead, investigation can easily reveal different aspects of the situation, meaning where people were at what point in time, because those people who were there at the time, those people will be interviewed. All the different people will be interviewed. Most likely even prisoners will be interviewed. And the investigator's job is to piece those things together and find out where the truth lies. Now, if you think about it for just a moment, Republicans, not just constituent, but Republicans in general, for as long as Clinton has been in politics, have been trying the hardest to get to the Clinton. They accuse the Clinton of all kind of misdeed, all kind of crimes. In fact, there is not a single couple, a single politician in America that has been investigated as much, as frequently, and as many times as the Clintons have. Now, I personally don't know the Clinton, but anyone with a logical mind who can think rationally, who can think logically, can easily come to the conclusion the perception that they have of Clinton is false. Now, I'm not here to say that they don't have their own problem or they committed their own misdeed or what have you. I'm not here to say that, but to explain that all those time, we're talking about decades of investigation by the Republicans. Yes, the very individual who want the downfall of Bill Clinton, even as president, he was impeached for way less than what Donald Trump today has not been impeached yet. Republicans have never led. They have been trying the hardest to get to the Clinton. Investigation. Remember the Benghazi? There were at least 6 investigations done. And they were after the Hillary Clinton. 6 separate investigations, all by the Republicans, despite the fact there were independent investigations being done as well. But Republicans took upon themselves to conduct 6 different investigations, congressional investigation over and over. Trey Gowdy's name became household because he was out there. He was determined to find something wrong. Did he? Now, if you are a logical individual and you put aside your hatred for the Clinton, because it is just that, hatred for the Clinton, there is no proof, no facts, no evidence, nothing that says that the Clinton are guilty of any of the things that they've been accused. And we can take that to the bank because all the investigation trying to bring the Clinton down were done by Republicans. Now, if you were a logical person, you have to pause for a moment and ask yourself the question, would the Republicans find something and just let it go? Because even the people bringing the conspiracy theory, it is for that reason that they bring it, because they want to find something about the Clinton. Now, conspiracy theory, it is sometimes funny, but sometimes it really shows the true characters of people who are flaming those conspiracy theories, but also the people who are buying them. Because think about it for just a moment. Yes, I know you hate Hillary Clinton. You hate the Clinton because the 2016 election is a true example of such. But and the reason you hear they crooks. But what proof do they have? None. They point to all kind of stuff that Clinton has done this, Clinton has done that, Clinton has done the other. But did you know that for 3+ decades, your Republicans have investigated the Clinton over and over and over for all kind of stuff, and they never could put anything on the Clinton. So you can only come up with 2 conclusions. Either those Republicans, all of them, are incompetent, because there is no other way of thinking about it. Because if you're talking about investigating an individual and you have all the resources at your disposal, those are lawyers, investigators, attorneys. We're talking about administration, Republican administration, over and over and over, investigating 2 individuals, and they had all the resources at their disposal. And it's not 1 investigation, 2 investigation, 10 investigation, 20 investigation. No, it's been going on for decades. Now, if you are a tad, if you have a logical brain, if you can think for yourself, not repeating what other people are saying, not following conspiracy theories, not expressing your hatred for the Clinton for no reason, but using logic, ask yourself that following question. If Republicans who have investigated the Clinton for decades, and number of investigation is probably as many as the sand. And yet, there is absolutely nothing that they can put on the Clinton. Yes, they come up with all kind of theories. They come up with all kind of accusations, such as, in this case, the Epstein accusation. And yet, after gazillion investigation, the Republican cannot come up with one thing that they can take the Clinton on and arrest them. Now, think about that for just a moment. How possible can that be? Either your Republicans are completely incompetent, and we're not talking about one or two, we're not talking about just this Congress, we're not talking about just previous administration, we're talking about Republicans in general have to be completely incompetent, because that's something they've been at for a very long time. And yet, after a gazillion investigation, they cannot put the handcuff on the Clinton. It's either they are completely incompetent, as I mentioned, or they have come to the same conclusion that any logical person would have come to. There is nothing wrong that those people have done. Which one is it? It cannot be both. Now, that's in order to look at the aspect of the conspiracy theory that keep pointing at Clinton as a culprit. Even the President of the United States sent a tweet to speculate about the fact that Clinton could be behind the death of Jeffrey Epstein. Now, I understand that it's easy in the Republican circle because, as I mentioned time and again here in this program, they're naive, they're gullible, so no matter what people say, they run with it. They don't have a brain of their own to see things for what they really are. And that is sad because millions of people, half the population, cannot come to think for themselves. This is not something to laugh about. It is a sad predicament for the United States of America. Because, as I mentioned, Republicans have investigated the Clinton. I cannot even put a figure on that. That's mind-boggling because it has always. If you take Benghazi alone, you remember the Benghazi problem? Republican legislators look under every rock to find something that Mrs. Clinton has done wrong. We're not talking about investigation done by Democrats. We're not talking about investigation done by neutral parties. We're talking about investigation conducted by Republicans. Now, if your Republicans, the same one that want to hang the Clinton, conducted investigation after investigation after investigation and still cannot hang the Clinton, shouldn't that be enough for you to realize that there is nothing to find? Now let's look at the other side of the conspiracy theory. As I just showed you, despite what Donald Trump has been saying, that he wasn't so friendly with Jeffrey Epstein, he did not know Jeffrey Epstein that much. I show you this picture of Donald Trump with Jeffrey. I show you this picture of Donald Trump with Jeffrey, and I show you the video of
that our producers found in
I show you the video of Donald Trump with Jeffrey Epstein. So we know that Donald Trump lied about his friendship with Jeffrey Epstein. Now, if we want to look at the other side of the coin, would Donald Trump have a reason for Jeffrey Epstein to die? Now, the court document that was just released, did not only provided what you would call tantalizing information to kind of make you want more information, because all those release documents did is saying that Jeffrey Epstein at some point associated with Bill Clinton, associated with Donald Trump, associated with even a prince. So there are a lot of people who were in Jeffrey Epstein circle. And again, politician in general, Donald Trump was not a politician, so Donald Trump is a separate case. But politicians in general like to be in the circle of rich people because they need money for the campaign financing, for the re-election campaign. Now, one more reason for politicians to work towards putting an end to the idea of having to raise money in order to run for public office. Because as it is and should be, that at some point, business people, while they may want or may try to stay straight, but they're going to do some things, anything that may not be legal, that may not be legitimate. And as a politician, if you were associated with that individual, you would pay a price, a political price. Now, in the case of Donald Trump, as I mentioned, it is a separate case because Donald Trump was not a politician. He was a wealthy individual with another wealthy individual having fun. Now, we don't know the extent of Donald Trump's friendship with Jeffrey Epstein because he tried to deny it, and as every time he tried to deny the close proximity with Jeffrey Epstein, more and more proof come out and show that yes, they were very close. The question is, why lie about it? Oh, I didn't know much about Jeffrey Epstein. And then you start having pictures showing up left and right with Donald Trump always in Jeffrey Epstein's circle. We even have that video that we showed you that Donald Trump did indeed have a much closer relationship with Jeffrey Epstein than he wants the world or the public to know. Why lie about it? Now, is Jeffrey Epstein accused of sex trafficking, accused of sleeping with minors? Now, this is not anything that anyone would want to be associated with. Whether you're a politician who benefited of his of money from him, because yes, he could have, he may have given money to some politician. Again, I want to make clear that the myth is dispelled. Just because someone received money from a wealthy individual doesn't mean the person is sharing that individual way of life. Because we know politicians like to have wealthy individuals give them money. So yes, they have to show some sort of friendship with the person, not because they're friend to the individual. So it is a danger, obviously, for politicians. So Bill Clinton took a trip on Jeffrey Epstein plane once. In fact, according to a statement that was put out by his spokesperson, that was it. There was no other relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. Now, it seems that could be just that. There may be nothing else behind this. But if, contrary to the scenario that I just presented to you, if Donald Trump were to have a reason to feel hear whatever Jeffrey Epstein had to talk about, because he would know detail. Who knows, he may even have proof of those details. Now, if Donald Trump were to know that there is something that can put him in jeopardy, he would have, contrary to Bill Clinton, he would have a lot of resources that could do that job. Once again, I'm not here to inflame the conspiracy theories, but rather to show the both sides of the conspiracy and see who would have more opportunity, who would have better opportunities and more resources to do so. Clinton is not liked. We know that. We already showed that to you. The number of investigations done about Clinton by Republicans, mind-boggling. So who would side, who would put himself or herself out there to do Clinton beating and get to Jeffrey Epstein? That's almost impossible. Donald Trump, on the other hand, is the president of the United States, which means he has, everybody works for him. Everyone who works for the government works for Donald Trump. So despite the conspiracy theories that try to put fingers at Bill Clinton, who do not have anyone responding to him, Donald Trump does. In other words, if Donald Trump knows that there is something that he would not want to come out and want Epstein dead, not only he can, but covering up is easy, because everybody works for Donald Trump. So you see those people out there that spreading the conspiracy theories about Clinton. One, they find willing partners in the Republican circle, not only writing articles and omitting the name of Donald Trump, but they also do not find people who have brain that can show them that Donald Trump have more opportunities than Bill Clinton can ever dream of to get to Epstein. Because Donald Trump controls the government. So the idea that Bill Clinton could get to Epstein and Donald Trump is, oh, I have nothing to do with it. As I just showed you, Donald Trump was closer to Epstein than he led to believe. So maybe there is something for him to hide. Maybe there is something that he doesn't want to come out. And if he did, then he has more opportunity to get to Epstein. Because a number of scenarios that been talked about, the fact that it's so out of ordinary, the kind of things that they say happen at the jail. Not watching Epstein after he almost committed suicide. Not checking on him. Those seem to look like they were accident. It could have been easily orchestrated, because someone who has power want the window of opportunity to do what ended up being the case. The death of Jeffrey Epstein. Who has the resources to do it? Not Bill Clinton. Who can more easily get away with something like that? Not Bill Clinton. Bill Clinton is hated in the Republican circle. You think Bill Clinton would entrust someone to go to the jail and kill Jeffrey Epstein and for that information not to come out? I mean, if you have a brain, this is a conspiracy theory you can reject outright. Because all you have to do is just think about it for I'll give you a minute. This is currently the Republican administration with a Department of Justice run by an attorney who has proven beyond a shadow of a doubt he is Donald Trump protector. No. You have to be terribly, terribly ignorant for you not to see the sign that if there is a murder, if indeed Jeffrey Epstein was murdered, one thing is absolutely certain from a logical perspective, it cannot be Bill Clinton. Because Bill Clinton doesn't own the government. Donald Trump does. In other words, if you want to spread a conspiracy theory, you have a lot of ammunition to use, because there is indeed possibility that the individual who sit in the Oval Office can make that happen. But someone outside the government, no matter how you slice and dice it, it's impossible. Well, I do hope that this information, at the very least, help you see things through a different prism. Because logic is hard to argue against. Well, if that didn't do anything for you, you already know what to do. Send us your comments, your criticism, your suggestion. Let us know how to do things better. As I mentioned before, this program is not going anywhere, so you might as well help make it better. In the meantime, if you should have a particular topic you would like us to talk about, send it to us. We will research it, we will debate it right here on the Fourth Branch program, the place for common sense. We will resume our regular program tomorrow at 10:30 a.m. I hope you can join me for an interesting episode. I hope you have a wonderful afternoon. That was an update through the prism of common sense. Join us again tomorrow at 10:30 a.m. for a full presentation. I am MD, host of the Fourth Branch program, the place for common sense. Send us comments, criticism, suggestion, or simply let us know how we're doing. Thank you for watching. Have a wonderful afternoon. See you next time.